With us, Newsbeat Sinead Garvan, as always, and the TV Times Emma Bullimore for a bit of an early chat today about the BAFTAs. Now, listen, the two of you were there. I'd say it was brilliant. Who is the more tired? Sarah chose her word very carefully. Is that the right word? A little bit tired?
A little bit tired, but it was a great night. It was worth it. Definitely worth it.
What about you, Sinead? Did you have a good night?
I did. I'm not as tired because
better behaved.
I didn't stay as long because I had to get up very, very early this morning.
Did you walk off in a harumph because the Crown didn't get anything? Did you like storm out and go, "This is outrageous"?
No, I just needed to go home. It's
Okay,
been a long
fair
day.
enough. Well,
I thought that was hilarious. They came, the cool kids of Netflix, we've taken over, we're getting the gold standard from BAFTA. They were so loud every time they got nominated, they didn't get a single one.
For you secretly, I sound a little bit of not very well disguised Schadenfreude there. Any other surprises, Emma, for you on the...
Benedict Cumberbatch, one of the greatest actors of our generation, one of the most popular guys, still has not won a BAFTA, and I am so upset about it. We're going to look back and it's going to be the shame of our generation that we never gave him a BAFTA.
He's still young.
Yeah,
There's
he's
still
got
time, to be fair.
But I'm not sure how much TV he's going to do now. He's a big Hollywood star.
It's a golden age of TV, as Kevin Bacon told Sarah. It's better stuff on TV now than the film scripts he's getting.
Yeah,
Funny.
I feel sad for him.
Yeah,
Netflix have got more money.
You're not happy.
I'm not happy. But I am really pleased about lots of them. I'm really pleased that Planet Earth did so well. That was an incredible sequence with the iguana and the snakes. I'm really pleased for Phoebe Waller-Bridge because she'd been talked up so much for Fleabag, and it would have been quite embarrassing for her, I think, not to get anything. Her speech was amazing.
Yes.
She thanked her mum, and her mum said to her, "Do anything you want with your life, just be outrageous." And it was fantastic.
I'm saying to that, my kids, from now on, that is what I'm saying.
Well, we're going to hear that
We're
going to hear that very clip in a moment. But Sinead, Sarah Lancashire winning Best Actress. That was a great one.
Yeah, I was really happy about this. I absolutely love Happy Valley, and I'm a huge fan of Sarah Lancashire. So for me, she was well deserved in this. She won Best Leading Actress for Happy Valley, and I think even she was quite surprised about it all. Here she is.
When we started filming with our original lead director, Eros Lynn, I think for about the first 3 or 4 weeks, I just kept saying, I'm wrong for this role. Wow. You've made a mistake, I'm wrong. I couldn't find a way of feeling comfortable with it. I was worried about the uniform. I just felt like an actor in a uniform. I was worried about the accent. I just was scared that the accent was just coming across as being too broad. And Eros just kept saying, please just trust me. Please trust me.
Deserved winner. I don't think anybody's going to really argue with that, are they, Emma?
Other than Sarah herself. She was saying that she's a massive fan of The Crown and she thought Claire Foy should have won. But yeah, she was very moved by it. It's always nice. There are so many award shows and I always find it really nice when they're visibly moved to have won, and she certainly was.
I think Claire Foy even looked a little bit teary when Sarah Lancashire was sort of saying, I think you're great and you've given me the best 10 hours under the duvet.
It was a poor choice of words, I would say.
Or a good choice of words, depending on your viewpoint. Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
It's one for Scott Mills innuendo bingo.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she won Best Female Performance in a Comedy. And, as Emma just said, her speech included a very lovely thank you to her mother. But she was interesting in the press conference because she was sort of saying that basically, she had this idea and her friends liked it, but would anyone else? Here she is.
And at least me and my team, we were like, either we're weird or like everyone feels a little bit like this. And so it's a huge relief that everyone feels a little bit like this. And this is just the biggest reward for any of that ever.
Is she going to be the Doctor?
Well, we did ask her actually, and she said no. She said absolutely not. Not that she knows of, were her exact words.
I think she's better than that.
That's not a no then.
She doesn't need to be the Doctor. She's got other stuff going on. I can't see it myself. I don't think she's bluffing. Do you?
Well, no, but it was funny because it was yesterday morning that the rumours were really swelling around her. Like I saw it kind of everywhere in the morning. So it was the only question anyone wanted to ask her in the press conference. But it was a flat out no.
And Joanna Lumley, Sinead, wins the BAFTA Fellowship Award.
Yes, and she's so gracious and lovely and wonderful. And she was, lovely on stage. Jennifer Saunders obviously gave the speech, introducing her. And she was like, it's nothing to do with me. It's all you, Jennifer. And she was lovely up in the press conference. She had a glass of champagne and the BAFTA. Couldn't hold them both. So she put down the BAFTA in true ab fab style and carried on quaffing her champagne.
I thought that was quite strange, though, because everyone knows that Jennifer Saunders isn't very, she doesn't want the limelight. And then Joanna Lumley kept saying, stand in the middle with me. And she just didn't want to. It was really awkward and strange. I don't know why she did that as someone who knows her character. But
Just a quick chat before we go to news. Adil Akhtar, best leading actor for Murder by My Father, Sinead.
Yes, well, I mean, I think it was fantastic that he won. I know Emma will probably
Should have been
disagree.
Cumberbatch.
Should have been. But it was, and I think, it's a very important story, and I think that probably is what perhaps won it over in the end.
I think it's classic BAFTA pretentiousness. My
Oh,
opinion. Sorry.
brilliant. This is what we like. We like Emma after a late night. She's an absolute maverick. What time
I'm
do you
being
go?
a maverick thinking that Benedict Cumberbatch is hardly maverick, it's hardly underground. Underground and maverick is Adil Akhtar winning it, not part of the acting establishment like Benedict
Trust
Cumberbatch.
me, I can see the way she's going to go today. Anything is possible. Before we leave the BAFTAs, guys, because we're doing it up to the news there, anything else that we haven't mentioned yet that we absolutely should have done? Sinead?
What, from the BAFTAs?
Yeah.
Well, look, my highlight of the whole evening was Danny Dyer. He was amazing in the press conference. It was just so funny talking about whether any of the royals have been in touch with him. Because, of course, he was there because Who Do You Think You Are won an award last night.
Because he's been away for a while, hasn't he?
He has. So this was his first outing, I guess, or public appearance since he had to take that break from EastEnders. But he was on really good form. He was really having a really good laugh with all the journalists. So, I mean, he was just my personal highlight of the evening.
Yeah, I was watching, I was in a box, I was looking down at all the celebrities and my eyes were just fixed on Danny Dyer the entire evening. He looked quite bored, I have to say, through parts of it. It was a long ceremony, but he was great. I have to say, I thought Strictly Come Dancing was robbed, should have won Best Entertainment Show. It went to Saturday Night Takeaway, which is a fantastic show, but I don't think it's had the best year, and I think Strictly was absolutely on form this year. Ed Balls Gangnam Style, come on.
Well, I know, yeah, that was a very enjoyable. Even watching those 4 must-see clips again or whatever they were, that was hugely enjoyable.
It was fun.
And to see the woman from Planet Earth 2 getting her final kudos. I think she was introduced by her director as Snake Lady, the woman
I
who
know.
directed that part.
The woman who's made the most memorable bit of TV in a long
here she
time.
is,
But,
Snake Lady.
I do have to mention People Just Do Nothing beating
Yes.
Fleabag to Best Scripted Comedy in that, something that's premiered on BBC Three, or it was the first time, wasn't it, that happened. A comedy in its entirety was put onto BBC Three, not onto television. And the fact that great creativity lives there, BBC Three, and that has picked up quite a few awards, hasn't it? People Just Do Nothing. For those people who haven't seen it, because it's not an instantly memorable title, People Just Do Nothing. It's about a pirate radio station. Imagine The Office set in a pirate radio station. And that's pretty much it, and it's hilarious.
And they were fantastic as well on the red carpet, because the red carpet last night, it was blazing sunshine for the first hour of it, and then absolute pouring rain for another sort of 45
Were
minutes.
they in character, Sinead, on the red carpet?
No.
Yeah, because they weren't afterwards in the interview.
No, they were the only ones that stopped during the downpour, and they were like, "Oh, thank you for recognising who we are."
Yeah.
We're all like, "We know who you are. You're brilliant."
There was lots of excitement as well about Saran Jones. She's there. She's just been filming Dr. Foster Series 2. She's been
yes.
away for a bit, had a baby, now she's filming, and she looked absolutely
great dress.
incredible.
That red dress
Hollywood
was-
glamour. And she's a fantastic actress as well, but it has to be said, she looked amazing.
But the bottom of the dress had got soaked.
Oh yeah, I
from the
bet.
rain.
Yeah, soggy.
Yeah.
Something the lads don't have to worry about. Felt sorry for Daniel Mays, our old mate Daniel, not getting it, but then Tom Hollander just, he had to
The
win
night
that for
manager
night
had to
manager.
get something, for goodness sake.
Well, there is
Snubbed.
that. There is that as well. Now listen, Emma, what are you reviewing for us this week on TV Club?
Oh, well, we're reviewing Three Girls, which is quite serious drama series about the Rochdale abuse scandal, but very well done. Also Redwater, which is this Kat and Alfie spin-off from EastEnders. Loaded, which is the Channel 4 comedy, and also Into the Badlands you mentioned earlier. And we're also going to talk a bit about what we've been watching and what we want to recommend.
It's now time to talk about Sell It To Me. Your turn to tell us what to watch. Sue from Stockport got in touch last week.
Okay, so I want to recommend Into the Badlands. It's set a few hundred years from now in feudal society. The Badlands is split between rival barons who've got armies of clippers who are warriors. The main one is called Sonny, who works for a baron called Quinn, and you just absolutely love to hate him. There's lots of samurai sword fighting. Reminds me of a cross between
3 seconds.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and Mad Max.
So, Into the Badlands is an AMC production, but it's available on Amazon Prime in the UK. What did you all think of it? Sinead, we'll start with you. Good then. Oh, is that your happy grur? Is that your like?
No, Oh man,
be selling-
I really didn't like it at all. It was kind of okay to start with, but then I was like, I just sort of didn't really care what was happening.
Swords and sandals.
Was it
your
okay
thing?
to start with? That's the question.
Well, no, I was giving it a chance. All right, I was like, no, I've chosen this, and
Yeah.
Sue did a fine job
did a great
selling
job.
it. So I was like, I'm going to give this a chance, and then I was like, oh man,
It's pretty complex. There's a lot going on and there are a lot of characters to wade through.
yeah. And also, you know, when one person defeats like about 15 or 20 guys in a row, I'm always a bit like, no.
What, you didn't like The Matrix?
Well, this is not exactly the Matrix, is it? Let's be honest.
Well, actually, I really enjoyed it, but then I love martial arts anyway, and I like martial arts movies, and I actually thought it would be a real challenge for them to try and do that in a TV format. But I thought that they more than got away with it. I thought that the fight choreography was absolutely excellent. I thought the storyline was a little bit tricky to follow, but the whole post-apocalyptic Mad Max thing, I don't know, I really like that. Emma, did you catch it?
I thought it just seemed like a bit of a string of cliches and stock characters and things we'd seen before. It didn't feel very new. I mean, maybe if I'd have watched episodes and episodes, quite frankly, I'm not paid enough to do that. I just couldn't get on board with it. I found it. There was no weight behind it. It wasn't for me.
Sue, thank you very much. Sorry that nobody liked it except me, Sue, but I'll keep watching it. And, AMC, wow, they're having a ball.
85058 is the text number. So that was Sue in Stockport who sold it to us last week. You get a chance to sell it to us. David of Birmingham has said, I know it can be dark and slightly slow, but it's deep. Hinterland, Saturday, 9:00, BBC 4, Welsh detective series.
Oh, I've
David
watched
in
that.
Birmingham.
It's very good.
Okay.
Hinterland's
Okay.
good.
Well,
yeah.
David in Birmingham, he did exactly what I asked of him. So please get your suggestions into us, things that we should be watching. Right.
Now, Kat and Alfie, Redwater, is a brand new drama following EastEnders favourites, Kat and Alfie Moon, as they try to track down stop laughing, Kat's long-lost son. They are absolutely the best thing in the Irish town of Redwater. Now, Emma, you have watched this for us, and people have said it's like Broadchurch meets Ballycay. What did you think?
Yeah, that's what they're trying to pitch it as. Shane and Jessie do their best Broadchurch. I was kind of apprehensive about this because on one hand, soap stars out of their natural environment basically never works. But it's Dominic Treadwell-Collins, who is the guy who absolutely transformed EastEnders, and since he's left, it's gone really downhill. So I was like, right, I'm going to give this a chance. I didn't mind it. I don't think it's Broadchurch. I think it's far soapier than that. Kat comes back to this town, and this is a son that she didn't remember having for most of her life. And then she meets, sort of about the second man she meets, she's absolutely convinced that it's him, and she will not be turned from this opinion. So, I mean, to say that's the complexity of Broadchurch, it feels a bit wrong to me. However, I actually quite enjoyed it. We've had a break from Kat and Alfie because Danny Dyer came in and sort of replaced those characters. But I think it's quite enjoyable. Don't expect it to be EastEnders. Don't expect it to be Broadchurch. Accept it as a new thing. There's a mystery running through it that's sort of from 20 years ago, and we're going to find out a bit more.
Commissioned?
Sorry, what did you say?
Was that the mystery?
No, I honestly don't think. I think it's enjoyable. I think lots of people who enjoyed watching Kat and Alfie and EastEnders will enjoy it. I just don't think it's as as complex as Broadchurch.
How many EastEnders spin-offs have there been?
Not many.
Not any like this. I think this is quite
Right.
unprecedented.
This is quite new,
Yeah. They do an episode at the seaside or whatever, but they've had more time, and I think the production values are much, are pretty good. And yeah, I don't think they've tried this before, and I think it's been a sort of worthy experiment. I suspect I'm more positive than Sinead's going to be.
Oh no.
They're huge characters. I mean,
They are huge, but
characters.
we were just chatting before, and I was saying, like, it feels like they haven't been in EastEnders for so long that I kind of wonder why this is sort of happening now, and I'd sort of forgotten a bit about them. And it is weird seeing them in this setting, even just like the way it's filmed. It's like, oh, what are those guys doing there? But I found towards like the second half of the episode, I was really like getting like intrigued, and the sort of the stuff that happens towards the end, that's all quite exciting. So it's more like the other characters that are in it are the ones that I'm enjoying, and I want to know what happens to them more so than maybe Alfie and Kat.
Also, there's a slight memory lapse. So there's Tommy, who is, remember, this is a couple who's had a baby stolen from their own house.
Yeah.
And yet, as soon as they get to this new place they've never been to before, they give them some money and say, go off and play, have some fun, buy an ice cream. I'm like, what? That would never happen. So, yeah, I was a bit perturbed by that.
Let's have a little listen to the trailer for Redwater.
If you lie your whole life, you cannot escape.
Welcome to Redwater.
I know this is the right place. I've been waiting my whole life.
She's looking for a man who knows nothing about her.
Some secrets are best left buried. This is my son we're talking about here.
This is a man that you think is your son.
Okay, please don't mess this up.
time is everything.
The chemistry is definitely still there between them as a couple, isn't it, Sinead?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is when you watch them, it is like how I remember them back in the day, however long ago it was now. I love the fact that it's set in Ireland. Having an Irish family, anything set in Ireland is always lovely for me.
It's like a who's who of Irish actors, actually, to be honest. There's an awful lot of people in there that you'll recognise from all the Irish
Is the line
movies
sucking
over there.
diesel in it?
No, sadly not.
Well, then
There's
it's
no
not
Adrian-
authentically Irish if
There's
it doesn't
no
say now
Adrian
we're sucking
Dunbar.
diesel.
There's no Westlife music either. I mean, you know.
Oh, yeah.
What that is your default Irish music.
Wow, wow, Sinead. I know, right? Wow. Come on.
dear.
Oh, I told you Emma was going to be Maverick today. Brilliant. You better watch Insult the Irish. That's Sinead Garvan.
Not an insult.
Tell
I
you
love
what.
Westlife.
We do have other pop stars.
Oh, listen, have you seen that the ending has been spoiled for viewers here? Because in Ireland that they went and saw it and then they tweeted about what they've seen. But I guess it's a bit of a nightmare for the programme makers.
Well,
But
there's not much
think
you
it'll
can
spoil
do.
it?
Well, there's not much you can do, I guess, when it's been on somewhere else. It's like any American show that's on before it's over here. If you go
Yeah.
on social media, you're going to
Yeah.
see it. It probably is a bit of a shame, I guess, if you have found out what's going to happen. You'll probably watch it a little bit differently, I guess.
I mean, I follow a lot of those kind of people on Twitter, and I haven't heard the spoilers, so I reckon you can avoid.
Because you're
them
not
if you
following
want
any
to.
Irish people.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
follow
forever.
all 5 members of Westlife.
Individually. Well, Kat and Alfie Redwater is on BBC One on Thursday at 8 p.m. It's afternoon edition. It's TV Club. Emma Bullimore, Sinead Garvan with Nihal and I for this hour. Now, Channel 4 have a fascinating new docudrama on next week. It's called The Trial, A Murder in the Family. It's on every night, and it charts a fictional trial of a man accused of murdering his estranged wife. They have real barristers, a real judge, and a jury of 12 members of the public. The only actors involved play the man accused, his wife, and witnesses. Michael Gould is the accused man. He's with us. And Max Hill QC is the prosecuting barrister. Good afternoon to both of you.
Good afternoon. Hello.
What a fascinating series. I mean, we've seen things like this in different ways before on the television, but I think this is, for me, the sort of most complete version of it that I've seen before. Michael, how did you get involved? How does an actor go along to a casting for something like this?
Well, you go along expecting a fairly conventional format. You've been told you want to come in for a drama documentary, and I had assumed I was going to go in and, play Brunel or something, and, you get a script and there's documentary segments added to the scripted scenes that you do. This was totally different, and it took a while for the penny to drop, to be honest. I had a second interview to cast my daughter. And halfway through that, I thought, hang on a minute, we're going to be on trial. I'm going to be on trial. That means with a real judge and with a real prosecution barrister sitting to my right now today and a real defence lawyer. I'm going to have to improvise all the way through this. I'm going to have to ad-lib. I'm going to have to know my character backwards, inside out, and respond live to really difficult forensic type questions. So it was, once the penny dropped, I was both terrified and genuinely thrilled to be involved.
And Max Hill QC was the prosecuting barrister. Talking of questions, what questions did you ask of the production company before agreeing to be involved, or what were the most important questions that you needed answered?
Well, I wanted to know how much of an accurate attempt this was going to be at moving what I do in court and have done for 30 years into television. So I was initially very reluctant to do this. As the director and researchers will testify, it took several meetings before I agreed to do it. And the two things that persuaded me were I was ultimately, after various conversations, persuaded that there was going to be real integrity to this piece. There are a number of ways of expressing that, but in particular, the fact that this was not going to be some form of celebrity jury. It was not going to be actors even on the jury, but ordinary people who'd simply been asked whether they were prepared to take part in filming. That was key to the integrity of it. And secondly, because the criminal bar, which I represent, has been through hard times recently, not much money around, legal aid budgets dropping, etc. I wanted the opportunity to demonstrate what we do without any of the frills of drama, but just to dispel some of the myths, and there are plenty of them, about our day job. And I was persuaded that it was going to serve that purpose, and it'll be for up to people watching next week to see how successful it was.
What were the most important myths to you, Max, that you wanted to have done away with in this process?
There are lots of them. How much time do
well,
we have?
Quite. That's why I asked what are the most important ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important is two things, really. The notion that lawyers will do or say anything for the sake of their case, firstly, and then what is often inaccurately portrayed through dramatisation, namely that there's some parallel unknown between the lawyer's life and the case that they're involved with. And in a lot of TV drama, it turns out that there are particular events in the barrister's life which drive the way that he or she conducts the case. Because heavyweight crime is what I deal with. If that was really true, then I think
You'd have a very lively social life, wouldn't you?
Well, no, I think I'd have been committed many years ago, if not imprisoned. So those are two very important myths. And as, in a sense, the burden's more on people defending. John Ryder, I know very well, who was a superb choice for defence counsel, has dispelled the myth that he does anything to get his client off, lies for money, knows the truth but chooses to hide it. Anything of that sort, which is not part of our job. And I thought it was important to put that across.
Michael, did it get to you playing an accused man?
Yes. It got to me quite seriously at times. I mean, I found myself looking at the whole thing from a dual perspective, shall we say. So there was Simon and there was Michael, and Michael became Simon's imaginary friend in a way, and Simon became Michael's torturer in some way. They were both very, very well connected. So Simon would wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning asking me about a bit of evidence, saying, what are we going to do about the key, or whatever the evidence was that was on his mind. And Michael would have to say, look, just calm down, go back to sleep and everything will be fine. Really, it will. So it's a funny thing, acting in such a thing, because you do very closely identify with your character, and you feel like you've got to take care of him. And so my family would say I behaved very, very differently while I was doing this show than I normally do.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's have a listen. This is when the jury is being selected in episode 1.
Simon Haywood.
I'd served 22 years in the military. Honesty, respect, loyalty and moral courage are the 4 values I expect my children to live by.
James Cax.
You can always tell when someone's lying. Body language, eyes, stuff like that. They look shifty.
Natalie Pickup.
The trouble is with life is once you see it, that's it. You can't unsee it.
Christine Bruce Reed.
You can't brush things. They are in there. The emotions or the memories or the feelings, they are inside.
It was very interesting to me, as somebody who's been a journalist for a long time and sat through a lot of trials as a court reporter. Jury selection's quite a long process, Max, normally. How was it refined for the television?
I don't think really there was any difference here or refinement.
So they went through it. You had people that you could advocate and say yes to, or people that you could say no to?
Well, yes, although the rules have changed in the time I've been doing the job. You used to be able to issue what they called a peremptory challenge, which was if you didn't like the look of a juror, they were too smart or too scruffy, you could say, please not that juror on this jury. Now, that was abolished almost 20 years ago now.
No, I wasn't talking about that. Maybe it's different in Northern Ireland then. So it's just straightforward, is it then, with the jury? They just come in and it's the first 12?
Yes and no. It is the first 12, but you have a local jury trying a local crime. You may have some questions that you will ask about where they were, particular factors of society that they know. If there are police issues, social services issues, you may excuse people from serving where they have friends or relatives who are employed in that area, or they're employed there themselves. So you are looking for people who are going to be objective, who don't know the personalities involved. So that is the process you still go through. It takes a shorter time, but it is still an important process.
It's very interesting then when you hear the clips of those individual jurors there, and you know that you get a kind of just a few seconds an idea of their complex lives, but how intelligent and sophisticated they are as people. But then you must see that every day.
Well, I do, but what I don't see, and this was a very important part of this project, I would never see what's going on behind the scenes in their deliberation room, particularly after the conclusion of the evidence as they make up their minds, because the law forbids any juror in a real trial from discussing what goes on in the jury room. And that was a big attraction for this project. And I think as you go through the series, you will see individual jurors, bravely, if you ask me, revealing their personal history, things that have happened to them during their lives. None of that is ever revealed to us as real lawyers in real trials. So there's something for all of us to learn from that. And I think I have to say hats off to the jury who were prepared to go through this, knowing that they were going to be on camera 24/7.
I mean, Max, we have a few friends who are criminal barristers, and the workload is immense. So it's almost like this one and then on to the next one, on to the next one. What did you learn about yourself and about what you do during this process? Because, of course, you are approached because you are an expert, but this is a very different thing, isn't it? And being able to look at yourself again and see what you're doing. I guess you don't have much time to review it. You certainly don't film it and review it, what you do.
No, I mean, I think I will learn as the series goes out, perhaps, how I come across, because we don't normally have a record facility, so I haven't seen myself in action. The test was to do the job as I normally would, not to somehow try to change my behaviour, because I knew there were cameras on me.
No showboating.
And no showboating, exactly, which is important. But I think what you will see is pretty much what you get in court up and down the country. And I have to add, I'm enjoying being here with Michael this afternoon. Let me tell you, this is the first time we've ever met. We had no rehearsal, we weren't directed, there were no second takes. Throughout filming, the actors, all of whom were superb, were kept completely separately from the lawyers. And so my only interaction with him was observing him in court, preparing to cross-examine him, and then actually going through it. And I cross-examined him pretty much as I would an ordinary defendant on trial for murder. And I think the credit in all of this really goes to Michael and the other actors who were able to withstand what are supposed to be probing evidential questions. As Michael's already said, he had no script. He was improvising. This was the ultimate improvisation. And I thought there were one or two occasions when he possibly rocked on his heels just slightly, but the mouth kept moving, and I was very impressed.
Rocked on my heels? How dare you? I was steadfast throughout.
Max started the examination, the cross-examination, with questions about me. He said, how tall are you? And Simon Davis, the fictional character, turns out is exactly the same height as Michael Gould, the actor. And he asked then, would I describe myself as having a medium build or a medium to heavy build? And I'm afraid I went with medium, because I wasn't going to give him heavy build. I wasn't having that. But it was so intriguing, because I think I did feel the carpet sort of being pulled away from under my feet at that point, and that was right at the beginning. I thought he's a brilliant, brilliant barrister, I have to say, and a much nicer man now than I thought he was.
I can imagine there's quite a change
a few weeks ago.
I can imagine quite a change. Michael, you said how kind of difficult the process was, not just because you're going to have to constantly improvise, but how intimidating is it to be in that position that very few of us, thankfully, will ever be in?
Well, you're completely objectified. I sat behind a glass panel, and I was every so often the jury were quite close to me, but they would have to look, to their left to look at me. And it'd be quite a big movement that they would have to do. So I was always very aware of when somebody was looking at me, and that was sort of terrifying, because I didn't want to give anything away. And then I did sort of panic and think, who are they looking at? Are they looking at Simon or are they looking at Michael? And what is Michael's giveaway or not giveaway or whatever, And it's a very objectifying process. The court itself, as John Ryder, my defence said, there is a format, there is a process, and once you start to understand what that process is, you start to relax into it. But they're always talking about you, or in my case, my fictional self, and so it's incredibly pressurising. And when I was in the doc, there was this curious moment. I don't know if you were aware of it, Max, when I actually started to get a migraine, and I haven't had a migraine for 30 years. So, and I started to put there's a checkered eye pattern you get, just before a migraine. And I was putting my finger to the bridge of my nose, trying to alleviate this migraine thing. And at that point, it was a real possibility that I was going to have a migraine. The judge thought I was crying. Then I thought the jury would think that that's an actor faking crying, or he's about to cry. And the judge said, do you want to sit down? And I wasn't acting at all. It was just the real onset of a migraine, which I had to just sort of work through because of that pressure cooker environment that is the court.
Yeah, I think when we're defending, and most of us who prosecute also defend, I certainly do half the time, we do have to say to clients, you must bear in mind that when you're in that courtroom, the jury may be looking at you at any moment. And one of the acid tests for this experiment was whether everybody in court would buy into that. And as Michael said, the fact, and you see it on screen, the fact that our jury spent so much time turning to their left and looking to pick up visual cues from Simon Davis, when in fact they're looking at an actor, meant, to my mind, that they were prepared to suspend disbelief. I don't think they would have suspended disbelief had the acting been any less great than it was, had the direction been any less seamless, and had the material that we were being given to present in court been any less real. So that's a testament to all of the programme makers. And, a trial does mean that you are up for observation throughout the process, and I have absolutely no doubt, because I've seen it for so many years, that it's a really stressful thing.
Yeah, and I just want to put in a quick word for Sarah Quintrell, who was the writer behind the project. Although we ad-libbed during the trial, the whole narrative and the backstories of all the characters were Sarah Quintrell's
written
invention.
by, created by her.
Yeah, exactly, and in collaboration with a legal team that were on the show, and with Kath Mattock and Nick Holt, the co-directors of the show.
Well, thank you both very much indeed. We really enjoyed watching it. That's Michael Gould, who plays the accused, and Max Hill QC, who is the prosecuting barrister, the real prosecuting barrister. The trial, A Murder in the Family, is on Channel 4. It's on Sunday at 9 p.m. and then continues throughout the week. Thank you both very much.
You're listening to a BBC 5 Live podcast.
If you like this, you might also like this. Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Is everybody's hunger in sport different?
I was hungry. I wanted to be the best. For me, you win or that's it.
To find out more about our range of podcasts, click, tap or swipe bbc.co.uk/5live.
BBC One's new drama 3 Girls is based on the real-life stories of those involved in the Rochdale abuse scandal. It focuses on 3 young victims, plus the 2 women who helped bring the case to light, played by Maxine Peake and Leslie Sharp. Now, this is obviously a very upsetting drama, and we'll be talking about it in the next 5 minutes or so. So if you have children listening, if you're doing the school run, feel free to go to another station and come back to us in about 10 minutes or so. Emma, not an easy watch by any stretch of the imagination.
It's extremely bleak. I have to say, if I hadn't had to watch it for work, I would have given up after about 15 minutes, because it's obviously it's very important, and it's a story that needs to be told. We need to know about it. But what was happening to these girls was so grim. I've been watching the Rhys Jones one, Little Boy Blue, on ITV, and I've been able to cope with that. I don't know why this is so much worse, whether it's to do with the grooming, the way these girls were abused, and then the fact that no one would believe them. By episode 3, it actually becomes more about the fight for justice, and that's kind of easier to watch. Maxine Peake is absolutely incredible, as you would expect her to be. But it's just a very, very hard watch.
I found myself watching this, and because, of course, at the centre of this were groups of Asian men around the same age as me, and I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, where did all their humanity go? What happened to these criminals, these paedophiles, these rapists, and what they did? And I guess that's what you kind of have to remember. I mean, these were Asian men. These were primarily of Pakistani descent. But they were criminals and rapists and paedophiles, and I just found myself being so angry, and as you would be, as anyone would be. I guess slightly the difference being is that being an Asian man myself of a similar age, those of us who are not to those people, unfortunately, people on the far right have used that to kind of say that potentially we all are that.
Yeah, and they touch upon that in the drama and the tensions that arise, and it is very tricky. What I find the hardest thing to stomach, actually, other than the abuse itself, is the way that the police just did not listen to these girls. No. They use phrases like child prostitutes, which later, Maxine Peake's character says, such a thing does not exist.
They're children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so hard because you think, right, okay, if something like this, God forbid, ever did happen, there are people that will help you. And actually, Maxine Peake's character, she's a social worker, and she begs the police to look into this. She says, we've got these girls coming to us. We know what's happening. We know who is doing it. We know where it's happening. Please do something. And they won't. And the fact is, I mean, she does, it's not a spoiler because, it's a real case. She does get justice by the end. But her character gets, in real life, she gets made redundant a few months later. So she's fought this thankless fight. No one would listen to her. And when she finally gets justice, she's not even thanked then. So, I mean, her story is really interesting and worth making a drama out of. This is worth it in terms of it being an important story, but I just don't know. It's like we talked about this before when they had these rape scenes in EastEnders and all these kind of things. I just find it very difficult to sit down and think, right, this is my evening, I'm going to sit and watch this now. Even if you feel you should, or you feel you should be better informed, it's just very difficult to sit there and take it in your living room.
Well, look, here's a clip where Sarah, the sexual health worker, played by Maxine Peake, is speaking to Holly's parents, played by Jill Halfpenny and Paul Kay.
We don't know what to think. We don't know who to believe.
Listen to me. Holly is categorically not a prostitute. Is not now and never has been. Because there's no such thing as a child prostitute. What there is a child who's been abused. By who? By men who pick on vulnerable girls.
The scum she hangs around with. They're vulnerable, they might need food and attention, but Holly.
Sinead, I mean, it's on over consecutive nights, and as Emma pointed out, certainly in the first episode, and that's the only one I've currently seen, I mean, it will take quite a strong person to carry on, really, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, but I think that there are people who really enjoy these true life crime dramas. And it's that sort of fascination that some of us have with like people who are just so evil, really. And it's, not being able to understand why someone could do this to another person, how they could behave like that. And that's quite intriguing. And I think that's probably why, these dramas are popular.
While it's not trying to obviously find any justification whatsoever, did you feel you understood more about the motivations of these criminals?
But I think that's the thing. We're always trying to understand why someone would do something like this, which I think is why, even following cases in the news, why they are so fascinating, because you'll never get the answer. You'll never understand, but you're kind of hoping that maybe you will. Maybe you'll get an idea of like how could someone ever do this? And I think it's that sort of intrigue that keeps people interested in these sort of programs. I mean, having it over consecutive nights is quite interesting because it's like you, I've only seen the first episode, but I need a little bit of a breather. But my goodness, the acting from the three girls who play the victims, they are spectacular. I mean, because obviously difficult for anyone to play those roles and have to really get into, the mind of what those girls are going through. And I just think they're fantastic. And of course, Maxine Peake, I mean, she's never not brilliant, isn't she?
Yeah. And it's worth saying, although these three girls are sort of a hodgepodge of all of the girls, that their identity's been protected. They have also been working with the victims and with their families very, very closely. Yeah. Lisa Riley particularly got to know the woman she was playing very well, and so they've had a big part to play in how it's been brought to screen, and they are in inverted commas, happy with how it's been done.
Yeah, and I think just as like Emma was mentioning, it is important that these dramas are made, especially this one, because this sort of thing is going on, and if more people can recognise and understand that these sort of things are happening around the country, maybe signs will be spotted. Maybe they'll be more sympathetic to if they see anything or. So I think it's very important that these programmes are made.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that currently there is a grooming storyline in Corrie, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
But that's also turning viewers off as well. I've spoken to lots of people who say, I just can't watch it. I just having to watch something else at the moment.
But that's why I think like dramas like this, where you kind of know what's going to be, rather than soaps, which I know obviously do try and like push the boundaries and tell these difficult stories. At least with Three Girls, you know what's going to be, what's going to be happening.
And it's based in fact as well, isn't it? Which is, as you say, something that always really attracts people.
Yeah.
It's called The Trial, Murder in the Family. It's on Channel 4 this Sunday. Oh, sorry,
Three
I've
Girls,
read the wrong one.
Three Girls,
Three Girls, yeah,
on
tomorrow
BBC
night.
One. Yeah, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. and it continues at 9 p.m. on Wednesday and Thursday as well. Not an easy watch, but as both Emma and Sinead has said, outstanding performances and a story that was all over the news, of course, when it happened. And it is, however difficult to watch it is worth watching.
Now, of course, we're going to do Sell It To Me in a little while, but we're also going to talk a little bit about something that we're all enjoying separately of each other at the moment. We're going to talk through our different choices. Nihal and I have come up with some stuff as well. Let us know what you think. This is something that you're enjoying too. Emma, what is your choice for something that you've really, really been loving in the last week or two?
This is old, but I finally sat down and watched the DVDs of the Mindy Project because I knew I would love it. I love Mindy Kaling, and I think this is the most important rom-com since Sex and the City because Mindy Kaling plays this fantastic heroine who is sexy without being skinny, professional without being officious, funny without being a joke, romantic without being stupid. And she smashes all of these cliches about what it is to be a female lead in a rom-com. She's so funny. She's so smart. It's her script as well. She plays a doctor who's been brought up on this kind of rom-com idea of love. She's looking for someone, but that's not all she's doing. She's also smart and successful. But yeah, without being standoffish, which is what all these professional women are always shown to be. And we watch her as she's dating and also working and finding that love might not be quite where she thought it was going to be. It's funny, it's brilliant, and if I put it off because I have so much TV to watch for work that I wanted time to sit and savour it, and it's so good.
I've never seen it, so I must give it a shot. What about you, Nihal?
I, over the weekend, after going out, I came home and I just wanted to kind of chill out a little bit. It was past midnight, so I just went onto Netflix and thought, right, what's on here? And I came across, classic Saturday night viewing, I thought, oh, hello, that's something about narcos, drug cartels in Mexico.
Honesty, you love Narcos.
I do love Narcos. So I
it's a
looked at
natural
this
progression.
documentary, and it's 4 years old, and it's called Narco Cultura. And it is about the phenomenon. I don't know if you know about this phenomenon, but it is that there are groups of musicians whose entire job is to just basically write songs that big up drug cartels and the leader of drug cartels. So they have these lyrics, so, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and they go, we like to kidnap people, we like to cut their heads off, we like to go into the... And you are brilliant at doing that. And they do this. That's, of course, me paraphrasing what the songs are like. But that is... It's bizarre. It's bizarre. And on the American side of the border, they tour these bands. Now, one of them came on and they've got these kind of amazing kind of mariachi costumes on, but a bazooka around their shoulders. So he comes on with this bazooka and then kind of points it at the audience to show, look, we've got all this great weaponry. Our cartel is the best. They're brilliant. They're fantastic. They're so good at all these horrible things that they do to people. And it's not just a documentary about them. It's also a documentary about the other side of the border. So most of it is set in Juarez. And if you know anything about narco-terrorism, essentially what it is, Juarez is the murder capital in a country that is full of murder, drug-related murder. It is across the border directly from El Paso in Texas. And they gave a statistic, and I'm not exact with the numbers here, but I'll give you a kind of approximation. About 3,500 murders took place in Juarez. In El Paso, just across the border, you can see El Paso from Juarez. 5 murders took place in a year. So it is a savage place. So what it is doing, this documentary, is juxtaposing these musicians, lionising these drug dealers from various different cartels and playing these songs for them and signing like you would see any band.
And
you know,
it's big
with
business, isn't it?
Huge business. And they've got groupies and they've got, tour buses and riders and all of that stuff. And all of these crowd are singing back the lyrics to them. And then they show the imagery of what it means to be in the middle of this carnage where a state is losing control of the power to be able to protect its citizens, and the murder and the carnage that exists.
really good.
And it is such a powerful documentary. It's called Narco Cultura. And if you like Narcos, if you like that, what is that film? It's got Emily Blunt in it. And it's about Mexican Sicario.
Okay.
Sicario. If you've seen that and you like that, then check this. It's not an easy view. It's not one. Hey, Granddad, come over, bring the kid, bring the grandkid. We'll all come round and we'll all watch Narco Cultura because that lovely fella off the radio said it's a great documentary. Don't do that. It's really violent and really weird. And I know, Sinead, your eyebrows kind of went up when I was describing what these bands sing about. I mean, it's certainly not Radio 1 playlist material, that's for certain.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe late night. Get Keith Stevens on the case.
Some of the more specialist shows, perhaps.
If your granny doesn't know what it's about, she might just quite like the music.
Exactly.
Sinead, what's your programme?
So mine is the Goldbergs. I don't know if any of you have seen that.
Oh, I've heard it is.
No, I haven't.
It's on E4, and it's an American comedy, and it's kind of loosely based on the guy who created its upbringing, his childhood during the 80s. So it's really nostalgic for anyone who was a kid or teenager during the 80s. References to Knight Rider and Star Wars, and his mother, Beverly Goldberg, played by Wendy McClendon-Covey, who you might recognise from Bridesmaids. She is fantastic. She's so funny. She basically smothers her children, is obsessed with her kids and loves them so much, and they're always trying to get out of her, hugging her and all this kind of stuff. She has a fantastic wig, these brilliant sweatshirts that are so 80s. Everything is so 80s in it. But just at the bottom of it, it's a really lovely, heartwarming sitcom, but just so funny, and the mother is brilliant in it. So that's on E4. There's loads of repeats going on at the moment, and I think it's brilliant. And so the guy who created it, as he was a child growing up, he was always filming everything. So at the end of each episode, there's a little bit of film that will corresponds to what's happened during the actual episode that they've obviously dramatised. Yeah, it's really, really good. I love it.
Excellent stuff. That sounds great.
Sarah, what have you been watching? I know you watch a whole heap of TV.
Oh, yeah,
so you
I do.
have lots to choose from.
I do. Well, I watch a lot for work, and then I try and watch things that I want to watch as well. They don't always meet in the middle, but sometimes they do. But listen, I have to declare an interest because this is the woman who presents this programme is my landlady. She lives in Morocco, and that is why I'm living in her wonderful house and I rent it off her. Her name is Alice Morrison, and she is the new presenter of a two-parter that's on BBC Two at the moment. It's called In Morocco. It's called Morocco to Timbuktu, an Arabian adventure. Did any of you guys see it? It's a bit niche.
No.
A bit niche, but it's very, very good. So it's just 2 episodes. And Alice, who's extraordinary woman, really. She was a journalist to start off with and then decided to leave the world of BBC News and went off to do the Marathon des Sables, so the hardest running race in the world, followed by the Tour d'Afrique, one of the hardest bike races in the world. This woman is not an athlete, but she knows how to challenge herself. She's an adventurer. So what she's done for this one is she is going from Morocco, where she lives, to Timbuktu along the old salt roads. The salt roads named as such because that's where all the trade happened. They were the most profitable routes anywhere in the world. At that time, when they were at their heyday, a kilo of salt was worth as much as a kilo of gold. So you can imagine just what happened, the wonderful stories, the wonderful things that happened along, and dangerous things that happened along the road. So she's retracing it. What makes it doubly interesting now is, of course, Timbuktu suffered hugely under the occupation of Al-Qaeda, and they are still very, very worried that if the UN leaves, Al-Qaeda will return once again. So she manages to weave in the current and the political with the old and the fascinating. Here's a little clip.
Okay, so this tank is full of gypsum. It smells totally and utterly disgusting. And I can't believe this guy's doing it with his bare hands, because I reckon this stuff burns.
This potent cocktail removes the hair from the hide.
Yeah. Actually comes off really, really easily.
But there's worse to come.
There is worse to come, and it's pigeon poo. And it's not very nice when it gets in your waders. So you see Alice doing all of this stuff, and you know she's not an actor. She's not another comedian doing another travelogue. She is an adventurer. She is passionate. She is knowledgeable. She speaks Arabic and French, and she's down to earth, and she's up for it. So episode 2 is Thursday night, and this is her continuing her journey across the desert on a camel to Timbuktu. You won't see anything quite like it. It's wonderful. BBC 2, 9 p.m.
That's our next outside broadcast sorted out.
Well, if she'll take me. In fairness, I kind of hope she's very, very successful in Morocco, because it means I can stay in her house and I don't have to move.
Amazing backstory to why you chose that. Right, comedy of the week, Loaded. Tell us more about it, Sinead.
Okay, so yeah, it's a new Channel 4 comedy / drama type thing. So a group of 4 friends who have all got together and created this app that has been bought out by this other company, has made them all like multimillionaires. So they each have about, I don't know, like 11 or 12 million pounds in the bank. And it's just like following the lives of people who get rich very quickly and kind of how all the sort of various things that ensue. They're 4 mates, but they're 4 very different characters, which I always find a bit odd when you've got a group of friends where each one has a very distinct character and none of them are sort of similar, because I don't actually know any groups of people who are that different from each other. But yeah, it's funny. It is funny. It's written by a guy who worked on Fresh Meat, so there's a bit of you can kind of like sort of vibe of that to it. Yeah, it's funny.
They're kind of quite annoying because they're man children, really. They
There
don't
is
really
that,
want to
yeah.
grow up. And they're supposed to have created this amazing app, and yet I don't really believe, maybe one of them you might believe had that capability, whereas the others not. I didn't find it that funny, but I also didn't. Yeah, it was perfectly watchable, but more as a drama than a comedy. I thought I wasn't laughing.
No, there were a few laughs.
There were a
I
few
think.
laughs.
We gotta move on.
Okay.
Sell it to me. We've got Anna on the line. Anna, thank you so much for being with us. You've got 30 seconds. What are you selling?
Okay, better listen than ever. ITV4 Wednesday at 10. Henry Winkler, the Fonz, William Shatner, Terry Bradshaw, the football player, and George Foreman, the heavyweight boxer, travel around Asia with their sidekick Jack, who's a bit younger.
I think my head just exploded.
Did you dream this, Anna, or is this actually existing?
It's actually in existence. It's the best hour. You just laugh from start to finish. It's like a travel show, a mockumentary come documentary, and they all play off each other really well.
We've run out of time, but my God, I thought you just dreamt that for the first bit. Okay, next up, Tom in Scunthorpe. You've got 30 seconds, Tom, my friend, starting from now.
I don't know. I'm going to be able to follow that.
I know. I did feel pity for you, Tom.
So we've got The Expanse. It's science fiction done properly by the Sci-Fi Channel in America. It's on Netflix over here. It's got a really good cast. You've got Thomas Jane, Iranian actress Jora Adeshli with Fred Harris. It's basically about a detective out in the asteroid belt. We've colonised the asteroid belt on Mars, doing a missing persons case. It's got quite a few good links to modern day in how things go in the world now. And yeah, it really gets you going. There's a second series out soon. Really recommend it.
Lovely. Science fiction for thinking people.
I
Tom
like
in
that.
Scunthorpe, thanks a lot. George is with us. George, go ahead. What are you recommending?
Hi there. I'm recommending Sky Atlantic's box set, which is Midnight Sun. It's a French Anglo Swedish thriller set in the wilds of Sweden. French national murdered, so lady detective has to be sent from France to oversee the investigation, which turns out very dark, very brutal, very politically organised, and it's just fantastic. So many subplots with the people within the village and the police people.
Magic.
Great ending.
George.
8 episodes. You have to watch it, and you watch it in
George.
3 nights.
George,
Thank
you're done,
you.
my friend. George, thank you very much.
That's a really good 3.
That's a really good shout. Midnight Sun from George, Tom with The Expanse, and Anna with... can we Google this just to make sure this actually exists? Better late than never.
There can
Sinead,
be
what do you got?
only one winner to that.
I think, I think William Shatner and Henry Winkler have absolutely won this. I don't believe it's real.
I don't believe it's
Right,
real either.
we will watch this week. I have to say, out of all these Sell It To Me's, this is one I am most looking forward to seeing, actually. If it's
Magic.
Sinead and Emma, thank you for being part of our TV club this
Thanks
week.
to
As always,
Anna.
great to hear from you.
You're listening to a BBC 5 Live podcast.
If you like this, you might also like this. Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Is everybody's hunger in sport different?
I was hungry. I wanted to be the best. For me, you win or that's it.
To find out more about our range of podcasts, click, tap or swipe bbc.co.uk/5live.